Yes. Blessings and welcome everyone. I am Tuesday May Thomas and this is 4D Trinity. I love this live stream. I love sharing with you every week on multiple multidimensional metaphysical spiritual levels. I am so grateful for this community. Every time I go online, there's like a few more subscribers. So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining the community here. I pray and I affirm as always that every single video, everything I share truly serves your path of spiritual growth and sovereignty. And as you know, or maybe if you're new joining, at this show, 4D Trinity, what we do here is we deepen our understanding. We deepen our awareness of how to and what it means to unify the body, the mind, and the emotions, these constructs, these parts of ourselves that seem to be disjointed or separate. We learn how to create levels of unification and alignment through these levels of self, that we may, in that divine alignment, find ourselves as one with spirit, as one with love. Ultimately, that here is what I teach, is that spirit is love, that your spirit is love. And love knows no bounds. Love is eternal, that is beyond time and space. Love simply is. Love is the quantum organizer. Love holds all of the blueprints to divine perfection within you, within your body, within every dimension that you can imagine exists through all time and space. Love, I like to call it, is the quantum organizer. When we learn how to allow and give our life over to love, when we surrender to love over and over and over again, what we're doing is we are letting go and allowing ourselves to receive the divine anointing of a higher order, the divine wisdom of a higher order. We're saying, okay, I don't have all of the answers. I have a pretty good idea of what's going on here. Yet, in the bigger picture, in the master plan, I'm going to allow myself to really be silent, to really practice meditation, to really be still in nature, to really surrender my ego and let go of trying to control things and join my life force, join my love force with the love of all creation. And that's what we do here. What we're doing here is introducing a language of light, a new vocabulary of light. For most of you, a lot of the things we say here might be everyday words that you use, right? And we just keep getting to fractalize and distill and turn over these ideas in more and more amazing ways so that our vocabulary collectively grows, so that the community grows together. And we begin to seed new grids. We begin to seed new threads of consciousness, a new vocabulary in this language of light. And we get to do this together. And we get to explore and experiment and create our own definitions. We get to create our own expressions and experiences from here and now, from a new set point, from a 0 point of love and only love, versus all the stories we've been told from the beginning of time and space. Right? Versus the fear-based notions that a lot of the collective are rooted in, even the spiritual collective. We did a whole show, right, on duality thinking. I'll come back and put a link later, where we're moving away from this duality thinking, right, in this binary realm that we call it here, binary being the 3D, and we're moving into trinary, which is the 4D. And we like to think about here at this show and the teachings I share that each of the Ds, each of these dimensions that we talk about are related to the chakras. And so 3D, you can imagine, is that solar plexus area, is where we plug into the world, where we show up as who we feel we are in our truth or not in the world. And it's how we relate to one another and to all things and beings here in this 3D realm. And as we learn to master that, as we learn to show up in our full authentic ability and our power, which is always rooted in love, it is never about control or greed or needing or wanting, but as we truly rest into our truth, the heart truth of us, what happens, remember, that pilot light in your heart begins to activate. And as the pilot light in your heart begins to activate, it becomes easier and easier to navigate and to trust with courage. And like the Fool on the Fool card, to trust the 0 point of the heart, and carry on and carry forth, no matter what the 3D world looks like, no matter what challenges avail along your path. You are rooted in a mystical plane of trust that bridges heaven on earth, that bridges the miraculous, that bridges a realm that defies the laws of physics as this world would have you know them. So together we are really doing some serious work here, and I want to acknowledge that, because without you, there is no me. You are an extension of me, and I'm an extension of you, but you make this possible by you showing up and participating. And whether you can make the live streams at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every week, or you come back and you watch later, again, I pray and I affirm that everything serves your path of spiritual growth and spiritual sovereignty. Sovereignty being your independence from the story that you're told about the world, your independence, your sovereign ability to be liberated from the ties that bind you to the past, to the ties that bind you to pain, to the ties that bind you to all things being limited in any way, shape, or form. It's a pretty deep realm to be free. Everyone might, well, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people quest for it. And the moment they have an opportunity to really taste it, to really go for it, right? That's the moment where your life can completely change. Life is like an adventure story. Everything you choose creates a new fractal of opportunity. And which way will you go? And when you go that way, what characters will show up along the path? And what may be the gifts that they will offer? Well, we don't know unless we go down those paths. But ultimately today, with our talk, which is, let me read it here, the crystalline tube, your energy lung, and the energy body matrix, how this all ties in is we're going to be talking about the actual physical lungs, and we're going to be talking about your crystalline tube, your energy lung. And with that, a breath. So thank you everyone for joining. If you are just hopping on, go ahead and say hi in the comment box. Blessings, Depthi. Thank you. I pray I am saying your name correct. You've become quite a regular. Thank you so much for showing up. I really appreciate your presence. And anyone else here, thank you so very much. I know not everyone, it's not your style to be all like chatting in the comment box, and I get that. It's cool. You can keep your mystique about you. I really appreciate you being here though. Okay. So I do want to say a word before we get into this, is that all of my links are down in the show more box. Go ahead and subscribe to my website. You will receive my monthly love letter in your email inbox, and all sorts of other freebies that I give away and invite our subscribers to that are not otherwise subscribed. I'd love to share that with you. I have some books, a couple of free books, and a couple of books you can purchase. I'm also on Instagram. I love Instagram. If you're an Instagrammer, check it out. Check out my page. My link is down below. I'd really love to see you there. And as always, I really appreciate your generous offerings to this channel. There's a PayPal link if you are guided to offer. I'm very grateful for all of your love and all of your support. So thank you so very much, everyone. I love what I do. I love my life. How are you loving your life? Are you loving on your life? You know, a lot of you know recently that a very dear family member of mine passed away, and it was you know, it wasn't just the death that happened right there, but for almost 2 years, this individual was dying of cancer and had a leg amputated and was doing chemo. And so there was this long journey, this very, very long journey of being able to process with this individual as they were dying. And besides some divine miracle happening, there was a sense that the family, we knew that death was in a 3D way, just a matter of time for this individual. And the whole time I was mourning, and I still find myself crying almost on a daily basis, just little spits and spurts. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because of emotions, because our emotions are very important. And in the physical lungs that we have, we hold a lot of emotions. And another reason why I'm talking about the show, why the show is inspired today, is because my dear beloved who passed away had a lot of lung issues and what was happening with the cancer. And almost a week or two after he passed, I get a call from my sister, and she tells me that she has been at the hospital all day and x-rays and everything, and she has, now I'm going to put this in a bubble of light because we allow these to just be stories in the 3D. We do not have to be bound to them. And I'm sharing this with you because there's a story, because there's a reason, not just to plant the seed in your mind that my sister is ill, because my sister has perfect health, here, now, always, through all time and space and dimensions. The doctors had told her that she had walking pneumonia and she had liquid in the lungs. So this is very, very, I don't know, some people take it very laissez-faire, but this is a pretty serious deal. And depending on your immune system, your hardiness, your ability to really heal, or your lifestyle, to rest and to take time out to recalibrate, this could cause some long-term effects to your immune system. So with my mourning and grieving and feeling all this emotion and feeling it in my lungs, this is why I was bringing up my dear one's passing, is because there was a certain point I remember where I felt so much grief in my lungs. I literally felt my heart was hurting. It was hard for me to breathe. And I had come home and I had done the legs up the wall yoga pose. And I was just laying there and just getting back to my breath and just regenerating. And a huge wave of grief came over me. And I remember it was tsunami size huge that I started bawling. And my body went to take in a deep, deep breath, and I found it difficult to. I found that even now, I feel like I need to cough. And I realized, I thought, how much stuff is stuck in my lungs, you know? How much do I have here? Because there was this sense of this deep swelling breath that really yearned to be taken, to ease me, for me to have this feeling and this release, and I couldn't take that deep breath. It was like, it only went to so deep. And that was a real big wake-up call for me. I'm very mindful of doing lung detoxes. As a lot of you know, I'm a smoker. I don't smoke a lot now, but I did for many, many years. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. So anyway, there's this realization of the lungs, the lungs, the lungs. And then, so after that, my dear one passes. Sister's like, I've got pneumonia. I'm bawling, crying. I realize I can't breathe. Then I get a pinched nerve in my back. And I think you might remember it was some months ago when I was doing a tarot reading and I was talking about it. And what I had realized is this pinched nerve was right behind my heart. Right behind my heart. Isn't that interesting? And what it did is it made it very, very difficult for me to breathe. And it actually hurt. There was pain. There was such a pinching in the back of whatever was going on in my back that I could not inflate the lungs fully. And when I tried to, it was like this barrier. It was like this, like, nope, there's pain here. And so to come back to being able to breathe in and out, it's such a huge, big deal. And thank goodness for chiropractic, that session really helped to reconnect those dots and to release those tensions, to release that grief, to release all that stuff that had become stagnant and stuck there. And again, there's a point to all of this, because energy in the lungs, outside of the lungs, in our energy bodies and besides it, as prana, as life force energy, is really the deliverer of so much more than just oxygen to oxygenate our cells. But it is what gives every living thing and being its life force, its ability to be animate, to be in a divine connection, right, with source, with God. And I know we can think that all things are that anyway. There is always the foundation, the baseline, as you know I teach here. Everything, the root of everything is love. Love and only love. And everything else is what we layer on top of it. Right? Yet there's this sense of that a living being, a cat, a flower, a goat, your body, that there is this very, very powerful extension of life force energy that helps to calibrate, right, our wellness, our health, our clarity of thought and mind. And so the lungs is the physical ability to breathe. Now, I looked up a little bit here, and I want to read to you just briefly. I took a few screenshots, and while I'm looking this up, please do take a few breaths. Now, I think this is really fascinating. And again, we're going to talk about the physical lungs, and then we will get into this crystalline tube and the energy lung. This is from vedanadosa.cvtisr.sk. The surface area of a pair of lungs is equal to that of a tennis court. The lungs are a pair of spongy, air-filled organs located in the thorax. They are used for gas exchange between our blood and the air. To survive, our bodies need oxygen that we get from the air by breathing. Breathing also allows us to get rid of the carbon dioxide that our blood contains and that is harmful to us. The respiratory tract can be divided into two functional parts. The upper respiratory tract has the task of heating and purifying the incoming air. The lower respiratory tract includes the lungs. Inhaled air passes through the nose and the pharynx into the trachea, which splits itself into two bronchi and therefore allows the air to enter each lung separately. The bronchi branch into smaller bronchi that evolve into alveoli. Bronchi tubes parallel many blood vessels that perform the respiratory gas exchange. Okay, a human adult probably has about 300 million bronchi that could cover the area of about a tennis court. Our lungs have such a large surface area because of the fact that in order to supply our bodies, where are we going here? In order to supply our bodies, oh, how funny, is that all I have? That's all I have. Oh, isn't that hilarious? Okay. Blessings and thank you. And good night. I'm just kidding. That's what I got. Anyway, the size, can you imagine? And really what I was trying to do there is I was looking up like how big is a pair of lungs? You know, I'm a yoga teacher. And we definitely think about the lungs being encased in the rib cage. So if you feel into your rib cage, we feel like this is a pretty large surface area. And then we look into that definition that we just read, and we think about this idea that if we unfurled and unfolded all of the parts of the lungs in these beautiful layers of tissue and muscle and mass, that it could cover almost the entire space of a tennis court. Now, isn't that incredible? Isn't that just amazing? And we think about as well the way that the lungs are these purifiers. They have this job equally as the crystalline tube, as we're going to get to talk about here. They have this job to clear, to purify that which comes in, and then to release that which is ready to be released. Now, the trick here, when I was looking up things about the breath for my sister, what it was all about is the ability to breathe. How conscious are we breathing? How conscious are we of the breath that we take in and out from the body? And also understanding that there is the in-breath, which brings a nourishment into the blood cells, but the exhale is also quite important, right? To excrete, to release the toxins from the body. And there's this beautiful circulation and this beautiful exchange that is ever ongoing, whether we're conscious of it or not. And absolutely, it is very, very vital, unless you are an ascended yogi practicing Kriya Yoga, it is a very vital component to our health and our well-being and our ability, right, to be in the world and to not have to continually deal with a physical ailment. And what we come to understand is that many of us are using this physical body, especially if there are a continuation of ailments, we're using the physical body to process our mind, to process our thoughts, to process our emotions. And the more we get in tune and alignment, as we were saying at the beginning of the show, with aligning, right, our thoughts, our mind, our emotions, our bodies with love, with light, with truth, with the truth that you are, with what is true to you, the less resistance, the less that we have to process in these bodies to get to that space of health, mind, body, and emotions, where it can be aligned on an ongoing level, where you don't have to catch colds all the time, where you don't have to be susceptible to the story of the world and how we've been told about it, where you can stop aging, where you can start to really neutralize and defy time as you've known it, and not out of a needing or a wanting, but just as a natural side effect of breathing, of consciously breathing. So this is very powerful. I know for me, I was a smoker Oh, for many, many years, for probably almost 30 years, I smoked, and I smoked a lot. I still smoke. As you know, I smoke sagerettes. I roll my own with tobacco, organic tobacco, white sage, and rolling papers. And these days, generally, I might have one in the evening with my evening cup of tea. And but back in the day, I used to be a heavy smoker. I grew up in Ireland, where back in the day everyone smoked, and it was smoke, smoke, smoke. And I smoked the heaviest, the hardest. I was also a singer for the majority of my life, and so smoking. And back then, in all the pubs and the clubs, even when I lived in New York, you could still smoke in the pubs and the clubs. And so there was this constant smoke in your air, in your lungs. I used to sing at a cigar lounge. And I remember I didn't really smoke cigars, but singing in there over that year, my whole singing, my vocal range went down an octave from inhaling all of that. And we think about not only if we're a smoker, but we think about the pollutions in the air that our lungs, like a filtration system, right, get to bring in and breathe out. We think about the emotional systems in the air that we are hooked into energetically through the grid matrix of collective consciousness. And we think about that which we are breathing in energetically as particles of emotion, as particles of thought, how we're breathing that in. And unless how we exhale and breathe it out, these remnants stay within us. Often when I teach yoga, the God phone. Okay, we'll come back to that thought. Blessings, dear God. Hi. God's like, how'd you know it was me? You're the only one that calls on this phone. Yes, yes. A lot to talk about here with the lungs. I am very grateful. So very grateful. Yeah, God says hi, everyone. It is a beautiful, blessed day out here in the desert. Yes. I would love to read that. Okay, God is suggesting that we read a little bit from the Louise Hay book, Heal Your Life. I would love that. Yes. And God says, think whatever you want, do whatever you want to do, whatever is true to you, yet you are invited to understand that the word God is a symbol twice removed from the feeling realization of love, from the feeling realization of unity consciousness. And God's so funny. God's all like, I am not a person, yet I am within all people, within all beings. Right. I know God has this funny thing, right, that I think you got from Constance at A Course in Miracles study. Anyway, God, in this light of how God channels through this God phone, is sharing with us that God does not have genitals. God is not male or female. God as love simply is. And love is the truth. And so be it. Okay, high five, God. Namaste, and thank you so much as always. Okay, we're going to read it right now. Blessings. Bye-bye. I love that. Oh, God. You know, I used to have a real big knee-jerk reaction. Excuse me, my nose is itchy. I used to have a really big knee-jerk reaction to that word, just simply because of all the polarity placed upon it that I had become familiarized with over my whole life. And it was only when I became a student of A Course in Miracles, where God is like in every other sentence or paragraph. And I even had resistance as I was learning those teachings and implementing them into my life. But as time went on, what I realized the teachings were sharing is that God is love. And the words are symbols twice removed from the root frequency. Anyway, if you can dig that, you're going to do whatever you want to do. But I know for me, it was like this moment of like, when I was like, I heard myself starting to say the God word, and I was like, ooh, that's so weird, you know? Yet it's in my book, How to Manifest with the Law of Vibration. I say the God word a couple of times in there, and I do not capitalize it as it is often capitalized, not out of disrespect, yet because God is not a person. You know, if we think of Jesus, that name was given to that person, and it is often capitalized, and I would capitalize that. Yet to me, somehow, it just feels that God is so omnipotent and omnipresent that it is not a word to be capitalized. Not a word to be capitalized. Not for me anyway. And I pray that is not disrespectful if that word to you is absolutely worthy of capitalization. we're all different. We all have different ways of expressing ourselves, of exploring what is the truth to us. And as we put these pieces of the puzzle together, we create the fabric of this 4D. We create these new ways to see things and think about things that don't have to be through argument, that don't have to be I'm right and you're wrong, but that all of us can have value in how we see things. And it is in the sharing of these new ideas and these concepts that we begin to bridge a new reality. We begin to bridge together a new foundation through which we can have new experiences that are rooted in love, rooted in light, rooted in understanding, in compassion, in being open-minded and open-hearted. It's very important. I feel it is. I feel it is an absolute necessity if we're going to live peacefully. And be able to laugh with ease, just be light in our lives, which is also, again, the lungs. So God, on the God phone, said, hey, look up lungs in this beautiful book. If you are not familiar with Louise Hay, there's a little picture of her on the back. I pray you can see that there. She's incredible. She passed away, I believe it was last year. And she's really a pioneer in the way of metaphysics, of us understanding what's going on a multidimensional, metaphysical, invisible level. And specifically, really, before all these hot terms of manifestation and, manifestation and manifesting, she was breaking this stuff down on a very, very deep and complex letter. And this is the first book she ever channeled, she ever wrote, which is called Heal Your Body. And later she went on to write You Can Heal Your Life, which has sold millions and millions of copies, which I've bought. I was going to say hundreds, but that's not true. I've bought many, many copies and have given every single one away over the years. And now I don't have a copy. It'll come back when it's time, though. So the God phone was asking us to look up lung. And the idea in this book, if you're guided to buy it, it's like, I don't know, $6 maybe on Amazon, if you have that accessible, is that from A to Z, she has every ailment or most ailments and the parts of the bodies where you may be exploring an ailment. And then she has I'm going to read it from her because the probable cause, I'm going to show you. So there's the problem, the probable cause, and then the new thought pattern, the new affirmation of how you can start to bridge and create a new pattern of healing in your body. And so the lung, where there's a problem in the lungs, right? What the issue is the ability to take life in. And one of the affirmations here is I take life in perfect balance. And I think this is so interesting because it really affected me to find out that my little sister was dealing with walking pneumonia, and knowing her and having a sense of really, again, this is all in a bubble of light, but seeing how there are certain levels of stress in her life, how there are certain levels of taking care of everyone else before taking care of herself, of having a job that is, while it's very blessed and very lucrative and financially abundant and successful, and it's a lot of striving and aspirations, and it's big. It's a big deal what she's in. She's in $1 million startup company, and she's one of the bigwigs in it. Yet this balance of taking care of oneself, this balance of no matter how much money you're making and how successful you are you living your whole truth? And besides that, even if you are living your whole truth, within that moment, within that paradigm of you living that whole truth, how much untruth are you walking with? How much untruth baggage is there that is requiring you, that you can continue to gain momentum in this path of your life in the way that you know is your truth? She loves her work. She loves her job. She loves everything in her life, right? And I'm going to stop talking about her specifically because I honor her privacy. But we think about this in the collective. We think about ourselves when we get ailments, when we get sick. And what's going on is there are unresolved emotions. Now, Louise Hay also speaks about every part of the body, and especially the lungs, though, that this is where we hold our emotions. This is where we carry our emotions. And unless our emotions are allowed to be truly felt and then truly released, right, over and over and over again, then just like pollution, stuff gets lodged in the lungs. I was talking earlier before the God phone rang about how I teach yoga and about how, I talk about imagining. I ask my students to imagine the size of these beautiful, magnificent organs in the body, and how for most of us, unless we are practicing yoga or pranayama or some kriyas or some conscious breathing work, like out in nature or whatever it might be, that we're unaware. We're unaware of the potency and the power that our lungs have for us. And we mostly shallow breathe. If you can imagine the lungs, right? One thing I did do is I did take a picture. So let's go back here for a moment, because I want you to think about your lungs, right? I want you to think about these magnificent, beautiful, beautiful creatures that are inside of your body, that give rise to perfect health, to the oxygenation of all of your cells, and to the excreting of toxic matter from your body. And again, imagine that those lungs inside of your body can unfurl and unfold all of their little folds to take up nearly the whole space of a tennis court. Isn't that incredible? So thinking about that and all the little areas, and remember it was saying there's like something like 300 billion little avenues and branches that branch out from the lungs, and from those branches there's more branches, all reaching and extending and connecting one part to the next part to the next part, connected to the greater whole of your physical body. And so what is lodged in the lungs? Who are you holding in the lungs? Often I will say to my yoga students, imagine the lungs in your body. And when we are unconscious breathing, we breathe only into the upper part of the lung. Short, shallow breaths. As we become more conscious, or maybe we get on the treadmill or whatever your routine is, you find yourself breathing a little deeper. Yet when is the last time you've really taken the breath to the max, where you can inflate each lung to their maximal capacity until you cannot breathe in anymore? And then equally, how can you exhale, and exhale completely, so that there isn't any remnants of pollution, of stagnant energy, of toxic whatever that might be collecting in the lungs, especially for my smoker community? That full exhale, squeeze out the sponge, like really push everything out, so that there's that beautiful interchange again, the circulation of life force energy coming in and being released. Our ability to take life in, and then to let it go, How many people do you love so much in your life that you just want to eat them up? Maybe it's a pet, and you want to hold on. We can get kind of covetous sometimes and just be like, I never want to let you go. Yet at the same time, there's that old saying, if we really love them, the practice is to let them go, right? Is to have that unattachment, that non-grasping, as the Buddhists would say, and be able to be in the world and not of it, to be able to be so present in the moment and with what and who they are, and who you are, and what the exchange is, that there is no need to grasp or to hold. And that can be very, very challenging. Okay. So one word before I move on from this whole smokers idea is, if you have ever smoked before, and even if you're not a smoker, I think this is a really wonderful practice to do. And I read it in a book, I want to say Leela Beck, and it must have been, honey, I was 16, so it was a minute ago. It was 30 years ago. And she had a really cool book, and I believe I'm saying the name right, and this was in Ireland a very long time ago, and it was like when I was first getting into all my spiritual stuff. And she had, I think it was called What Color Are You? This book with colors of the aura. It was a real simple, small book, and she had just like 1 or 2 little yoga poses for each color to stimulate in the chakras. And she had this one about the heart center, and how the heart center and the lungs, I mean, they're neighbors, right? They rest right in, they snuggle in within one another. And she just had this little footnote at the bottom of that page where the heart and the lungs for the heart chakra. And she said, if you are a smoker, think about breathing rose pink into your lungs and rose pink out of your lungs. And for years now, with clients, with students that I work with, smokers or not smokers, but especially smokers, I'll invite them to be present with that idea and to feel into it. And as it resonates, to practice that while they're smoking, while they're not smoking. Maybe it could be an hour practice where you just consciously are going about your day, going to the shops or doing the dishes, whatever it is, exercising, and you practice breathing in and breathing out, or rose pink. You practice imagining all those folds of the lungs as being a healthy, vibrant rose pink. We begin to understand and know that by placing our awareness in those areas, by placing the visualization, the intention in these parts of the body, that to the level and degree that the body can match, can meet it, can align with that perfection, it is so for the highest good. You know, we never force anything here. We never force a will. It's all for the highest good. Now, equally so, if you haven't been a smoker, you can still breathe rose pink in and breathe rose pink out. For my smoker friends, you know, if there is not a practice of conscious breathing or yoga or exercise or something that encourages you, makes you breathe deeper, often the smoking of the cigarette will be the deepest breaths you will be taking throughout the day. And so the invitation is, if those are your only deepest breaths throughout the day, to vitalize them with this rose pink frequency, with this rose pink energy that is clearing, that is cooling, that is healing, and that is really rooted in that heart center, rooted in boosting the immune system and replenishing the fuel and the ability for us to be forgiving, to be forgiven, to share and extend compassion, and to rest, right, in peace. And not just when we die, but while we're alive. So again, if you're just joining us, drop a comment in the comment box. I'd be so very grateful. Thank you so much. If you already have, thank you. So let's see. No respirator. Body unconscious act. Okay, it's nature. The body's nature is to take life in and then to allow it to go out again. We are energy atoms. We are ions. Remember, we did a show a while ago on the ions, which I had so much fun doing. And what we begin to realize is, as I was mentioning earlier, as we begin to clear and cleanse these aspects of the baggage, of the unhealed territory that we walk with in this world, as we begin to release those aspects, we become lighter. There is more space for that love that is ever-present, eternal, omnipotent, to reside. Because that is our truth. We are actually, that is the truth. Besides your name, besides your body, besides all of that, that is the truth of you, if you should receive it. And when we release enough of the past, enough of the stories, enough of the pain, of the hurt, of the memories of all of that stuff, we begin to, as I say, drop atoms. If you are on Instagram this week, I posted something referring to that, where the whole world, right, and all of matter is gravitatious. It holds us bound to the world as we've come to know it, which is fine, which is great. The world is beautiful. It's a wonderful place. Yet what are we hooked into? What are we bound to? And how much of that is emotional, unhealed aspects that are seeking liberation, that are ready to be healed? How much pain are we still walking with? How much memory of the past that keeps us bound to the past are we still walking with, to the point where it's with us in every waking moment of our now, and where we might even project it into our future? Well, this is the kind of stuff that can get stuck in the lungs. It can get stuck anywhere really in the body, but specifically talking about the lungs and going further and talking about the crystalline too. Now, I have a little story to tell you, because we understand that healing is a process. We understand that healing is a profound process of alchemy, and it takes nothing outside of yourself but a little willingness to surrender, to the power of love. Really, that's all it is. Forgiveness, a little willingness to surrender the ego, to surrender the separation consciousness, and to open ourselves to volumes, to the eternal presence of love and light, and to allow, again, that as the quantum organizer to do the work through us and to us and for us. We simply create the correct conditions to receive it. And creating the correct conditions is very powerful. There's nothing wrong with getting pneumonia. There's nothing wrong with having cancer. There's nothing wrong with being sick, and it's not right if you don't get sick, and it's not wrong if you get sick. We're all here having different experiences, doing it in our own ways, right? Utilizing this physical body in our own authentic, integral ways that serve us. And maybe those ways change over the years. Or maybe we just have a certain path, and that's what we're dealing with. We're just always going to have that ailment. If we're in agreement with that, we're just always going to use something to work on calibrating and activating a deeper healing within us. The story of preparation. Now, as we come into understanding this, popping into and out of the world, right? We are waves, we are energy waves, we are energy fractals. We are none of it at the same time. The more you drop atoms, the more you heal your life, the more you release people from who they've been to you, especially if they've hurt you in the past, the more all that stuff that you can let go of and release and bless and forgive, get it off your chest, express it. The freer you become, the less bound to the gravity of the grid matrix you are. And so in that way, there's less matter, there's less stuff, there's less atoms that you are bound by in this material world. It's like Neo in the movie The Matrix. There's a certain tipping point that he reaches where he no longer is bound to the thoughts, to the feelings, to the reactions of the bullets being shot at him. He has no definition of them. He has no pain. He has no memory. He has no fear. He doesn't even know what they are. There's no definition anymore. And so with that, there's no power over him. He's beginning to blink in and out of creation, just like the ions that we are. Half the time, half the atoms are here, half the other time they're not. They're blinking in and out of creation, and you begin to do the same. You begin to do the same. Yet, there's a preparation, right? And not that that's maybe the end goal. And it happens for some, and it may not happen for others, and it's okay, whatever your path is. The reason why I'm telling you this is that there is a story of preparation that is really important to our spiritual ascension. And we're going to start talking here slowly, very slowly, or maybe not so slowly, about this crystalline tube, about your energy body matrix, about how it connects you to all people, places, and things throughout all time and space. First, I'm going to tell you a story. And I want to read to you about Kriya Yoga. So I know if you're here, that you're here for a reason. I know if you've come to watch this, that you're watching this for a reason. And maybe not everything makes sense, or not everything are words that you are familiar with, and maybe it is. And maybe there's just this addition of a slightly different fractal of a way to see things, of a way to understand yourself, of a way to heal your life. Now, I'm deeply guided to read about Kriya Yoga and a little bit about life force, pranayama. This is a version of the Bhagavad Gita, Royal Science of God Realization, and this is by Paramahansa Yogananda. And now this stuff gets really, really deep, but I'm going to skim through, and we're just going to let it sink in, and then we're going to move on. I'm very strongly guided to do this. By controlling the life force, as is accomplished in the performance of the Kriya Yoga technique, the yogi can assuredly gain a state of deep divine ecstasy. But Kriya cannot be practiced so many times by a beginner. When the body and mind of the Kriya Yogi are adequately prepared to accommodate the high voltage of so much Kriya Yoga practice, his guru will advise him that he is ready for the experience of samadhi. When my mind and body were ready, my guru gave me samadhi. Before that, when I was not yet spiritually prepared for that state, my request for samadhi was rightly denied by the great yogi. Now, this speaks to being mindful of what we ask for. It speaks to being a humble student. It speaks to listening to spirit, to your guides, to your higher self, and not forcing a will, not even forcing your own spiritual will. Oftentimes with spirit, well, I won't even say oftentimes, but it can be, as with anything in life, there is a hastening towards a certain goal. There is, I want more, right? I want a deeper experience. I want to see with my third eye. I really want to go there. I want to know what the gurus know. I want to be able to expand on that level of enlightenment. I want to be enlightened right now. Pretty funny. So we're going to keep going. When the yogi, by years of practice of Kriya Yoga, makes his body and bodies as well, and nerves adaptable, he can manifest within his body ecstatically, easily, all the current generated by the practice of 20,736 Kriyas and much more. The adept Kriya yogi concentrates the ecstasy-producing power not in the numbers of Kriya, but in each Kriya. After years of intense practice and through the blessing of my guru and param gurus, now when I do only 1 to 3 kriyas, my consciousness enters the blissful samadhi state. The body thus realized as life force becomes one with cosmic energy. In Kriya Yoga ecstasy, the body is perceived, which really is samadhi, is ecstasy, without the drugs. You're high. You're high without the drugs. The body is perceived not as flesh, but as electro-lifetronic energy. I mean, isn't that beautiful? Electro-lifetronic energy. The body thus realized as life force becomes one with cosmic energy. The ego consciousness is transmuted into the inconceivable bliss of the soul. The soul and its bliss commingle with the cosmic blessedness of spirit. In the state of ecstasy, the yogi knows the body to be a motion picture of divine energy, which in turn is a dream of God's consciousness, and he or she, the self, is an eternal part of that dreaming consciousness. Now we're just going to keep going. We're just going to read. We're going to let this sprinkle over us. By the concentrated practice of Kriya Yoga, pranayama, offering the inhaling breath into the exhaling breath, and of offering the exhaling breath into the inhaling breath, the yogi neutralizes these 2 life currents and their resulting mutations of decay and growth, the causative agents of breath and heart action, and the concomitant body consciousness, by recharging the blood and cells with life energy that has been distilled from breath and reinforced with the pure spiritualized life force in the spine and brain. The yogi stops bodily decay, thereby quieting the breath and heart by rendering their purifying actions unnecessary. The yogi thus attains conscious life force control. Now, a little background. The Bhagavad Gita clearly mentions in this stanza the theory of Kriya Yoga, the technique of God communion that Lahiri Mahashaya gave to the world in the 19th century. And Lahiri Mahashaya is Paramahansa Yogananda's guru. Kriya Yoga pranayama, or life control, teaches man to unite the cord of breath that binds the soul to the body, thus scientifically empowering the soul to fly from the bodily cage into the skies of omnipresent spirit and to come back again at will into its little cage. How amazing is that? To be free so much, to have so few ties, to have so few gravitational pulls and identifications into this body, to have so few things stored in the tissues and the cells, specifically unresolved aspects to be healed in our lives, because that's all it really is. When that stuff is resolved and healed to a certain maximal position, the tipping point of alchemy within yourself, the tipping point of love shifts and you become lighter. You drop those atoms, you drop that gravity that keeps you bound again to the stories of pain, of hurt, of there's not enough money, of insecurity, of self-doubt, of whatever all that stuff is. And you become free, you become sovereign. And you can, with greater ease, commune with spirit, with soul, with love, with light. and begin to bridge that love and that light in this world. And that's all we do here at 4D Trinity, is we talk about this, we communicate this, we talk about all the ways that we're already doing it, right? And more ways that we can understand this vocabulary of light, this vocabulary of love, and begin to speak it and begin to embody and live it. So a little background, pranayama is derived from two Sanskrit words, prana, life, and ayama, control. Pranayama is therefore life control and not breath control. The broadest meaning of the word prana is force or energy. In this case, the universe is filled with prana. All creation is a manifestation of force, a play of force. Everything that was, is, or shall be is nothing but the different modes of expression of that universal force. The universal prana is thus the prakriti, pure nature, the immanent energy or force which is derived from the infinite spirit and which permeates and sustains the universe. In the strictest sense, on the other hand, prana means what is ordinarily called life or vitality of an organism on earth. The prana of an animal, a plant, a man means the life force or vital force enlivening that form. Now, a few more bits and bobs, but this is important as we get into the energetics, right, of your crystalline tube. Because again, this is the vital life force that enlivens your form. The preparation to be able to hold greater volumes of this life force, the preparation to take in a deeper breath is first met by the preparation to just simply observe the breath, to be with the breath, to consciously breathe. We take humble baby steps in preparing, right, the body, mind, continuums for activation, for ascension, for enlightenment. And we are not grasping at any end results. We honor the process, and we know that everything is given in its right time and space, and for the highest good, not just of ourselves, but for all. As noted, bodily activity produces decay and the consequent waste product of carbon dioxide. This waste is excreted from the cells by the apana or eliminating current and is carried by the blood to the lungs. Then the downwardly flowing apana current in the spine causes exhalation and pushes out the impurities of the lungs through the exhaling breath. So again, the exhale, just as important as the inhale. And ultimately, the Kriya Yogis go to the point where it's like the grid, right? Where we learn the grid to go beyond the grid. We learn the grid to help us learn how to master our time and space, and then ultimately to go beyond it. And equally so, we learn maybe the Kriyas. Maybe we learn pranayamas. We learn these ways, or for the Kriya Yogis, they learn these Kriyas, but then ultimately, to very hardly even require them, you use the breath to go beyond the breath, because ultimately these Kriya Yogis will reside in a space of suspending the breath. The breath is no longer required, but we're not talking about that. I'm not advocating you go straight in for that right away. The light of pure life energy scintillates from the cerebral spinal centers directly to all bodily cells, magnetizing them, arresting decay and growth, and making them vitally self-sustained, independent of breath or any external source of life. So that's where they get the body electric. Okay, but here we go. One last little bit. When by Kriya Yoga the mortal breath disappears, scientifically from the lungs, the yogi consciously experiences, without dying, the death process by which energy is switched off from the senses. Energy being switched off by the senses. Now, this is very interesting because the senses are related to the physical body, and that's how we identify everything that we come into contact with here in the world. And as we identify strictly through the senses, that is only one channel, right, that we are seeing and sensing and organizing information through. Yet when we allow those senses to rest, when we allow the senses to be honored and to be amplified, to be activated, they become one. They become that sixth sense, where our ability to hear, to see, to feel, to know, to intuit is just there. It just simply is. It just simply is a natural byproduct. Through this preparation, through healing our lives, through choosing love over fear. So this whole notion of Kriya Yoga was brought, and I thought I had marked it somewhere, was brought by, I think I did talk about it, Lahiri Mahashai. Let's see. And it was revived and clarified for this age by Mahavatar Babaji and given to the world through Lahiri Mahashai. Okay, so talking about purification, you know, Tool, a rock band, I don't think they're together anymore, but they have a song called Prying Open the Third Eye. And, you know, we might get a taste of what it's like to have peace, to experience enlightenment, or to be intuitive, to have a psychic sense of those powers, so to speak. And maybe we want more. And maybe we want more. So then we begin to force, we begin to find out techniques and ways to begin to activate that. And not that there's anything wrong with that, right? If we're listening and we're paying attention to what we're guided to and what is a yes and what is a not yet, then it's all in perfect harmonic alignment. And your path will be met generally with ease and with flow and with divine synchronicity. And you will be preparing every step of the way. Now, some preparations are a big thunderbolt. And what's going on here? This preparation is ultimately about preparing the body to hold greater life force energy, preparing your energy body to be able to let go again of the gravity of the grid so that all of the channels within you can be nourished and fed and easily allow this eternal life force energy, this powerful frequency of love to flow through you, through all time, space, through all dimensions, as you exist here. I remember years ago, it must have been 2000, I don't know. There was a Babaji Kriya Yoga class in New York when I lived there, and it was 2001 maybe. And I remember going, and it was a whole weekend. It was a Friday night introduction where they gave a free talk that anyone could go to, and then there was a whole weekend training, you know. And I was divinely guided to do the level 1 of it. And I went, and that Friday for the free talk, I just remember sitting there and I was wriggling in my seat, and I had such a hard time trying to listen and pay attention and be present. And it was very difficult. It was very challenging for me. And I didn't understand what was going on. And I remember we had a break and I went across the street. I had like a sandwich or something I was eating. And I was very much like anti-authority back in the days. I had a big issue with authority. And I remember I had put my feet up on the chair opposite me at this little park, and I'm eating my sandwich, and a cop or the security guy from that little park came over, and he tapped the chair with his stick, and he said, "Ma'am, you got to put your feet down. This is it's illegal. It's blah blah blah, prosecution number 538 or whatever." And I looked at him. I was like, "Really, really?" Like I used to have a lot of attitude when it came to authority, and I had this push pull with him. And at this point, I was already a practicing Reiki master. I was already teaching yoga. I was, you know, in this whole realm of spiritual whatever since I had already been 16. So this is many years in. But the moral of the story is then I go, anyway, so I have this tiff-tuff with this security police guy. I go back into the meeting. And again, I'm sitting there, I'm fidgeting, I'm uncomfortable. I've got the itch. I've got this. That weekend, I did not do the training. And I remember just like forgetting about it and being like, whatever, this is so not supposed to be, whatever, whatever. Writing it off and forgetting all about it. Well, a year comes back, I see the ad in the little health newspaper or whatever I was reading at the time. And it was inviting, again, it was like the same teacher was going to be back in New York doing the same training, level 1, Babaji Kriya Yoga. And I was like, huh. And my higher self was like, go. And I was like, again? And they're like, go. And I go to the Friday night thing. I wasn't fidgety. I was sitting. I was able to like, oh, really get it. And I was like, yeah, I signed up and I went that weekend. And the moral of the story is I was not ready yet. I was ready to have a taste. I was ready for the year before to go and just to be in the presence, even on that Friday night intro, with all of those people, with all of that energy, with all of that information, with that height of frequency, that vibration, that pure energy. All of that life force no matter how large my channels had been activated and how much of a good person I was and how much work I had done on myself, what I got was what I needed for that time and space. I got just that little taste on the tip of my tongue, and it annoyed me. It triggered my tar body, my issues, those parts of me that had not been healed yet, to the point where I had this commingling with this security guy at the park. It brought up my stuff. It brought up my resistance, and it got projected into this incident outside. And the whole thing, as I told you, I was fidgety and I couldn't sit still. So then cut to this next year where, unbeknownst to me, I was like, I had to recognize where I had done some serious work on the self of self, where things had moved, energy, resistances, blockages had shifted to the degree that I could sit in the presence of this teacher and the teachings with ease. It felt natural. It felt like there was less resistance, less limitation to that energy, to that transmission and that transference. And I've been practicing those same kriyas since then for many, many years. So often the ego will want more instead of just working with what it is. And, you know, in many ways, I think about this preparation. Some people, and I say this very loosely, and I promise we're getting to this. I know you're intrigued by my art here. I know you're just like, what's going on? We will get to that. But it's just very interesting over all the years of doing energy work and of working with clients and people and just all the, even parts of the self, right, that we realize over time and space. When I share Reiki, when I share Reiki attunements, when I have students, and I am honored to have the gift of sharing an attunement with them so that they understand and start by turning on their ability to heal themselves. Well, what happens is that there's levels in the lineage that I'm in. There's level 1, 2, 3, and then master level if you are guided and perhaps want to be a teacher or just use that in mastering your own life. And level 1 is all about learning how to love themselves, learning how to practice healing their lives by placing their hands on their body, by communing with life force energy, with prana, with life force energy, with creating a relationship, a conversation, and by creating the correct conditions within ourselves. So now we're going to start to get into it. So we think about the body, the physical body, and we think of the spine. And we think about the chakras. And you know what? It's funny. I have my notes back there, and I did not pull them out. They're behind the board. We might have to. I'm not sure. But we'll think about, see this crystal. You can imagine that your spine is housed by a crystalline tube. And I will often use this notion with students, that there's a crystalline tube that goes above the head and below the spine that houses your chakras and your spinal column. Your chakras are energy centers that distribute vital life force energy out to all of the aspects of your body, right? Energetic and otherwise. And your crystalline tube is your energy lung. It is your metaphysical energy lung through which the body breathes. Now, within this lung, just like the lungs of our physical body, there's a huge job, because it is through this lung that all parts of the body-mind continuum, energetic and otherwise, are nourished and fed, are replenished, but also that what is ready to be excreted is to be released. Again, where we have not cleared and healed and created the correct conditions to hold more love, to hold more light, more wisdom, greater intuition, greater awareness, greater enlightenment, we will not be with the proper capacity to be plugged into that, as I was at this initial Kriya Yoga meeting, right? I got a little taste, it zapped me, it put me in a real bad mood. I got into a fight and I ended up not doing the training, you know? So it's interesting, right? When we think about things like this, where we feel ready, we're guided, we dip in, but we're not fully ready to be plugged in. And so like that, when my Reiki students receive their level 1, what happens is these the ancient Sanskrit chokure, through a ceremony, and I know there are different lineages and different ways that we all teach. I do have a Reiki playlist if you're interested in how I teach or the teachings I share with that. I'll put it up here later, or you can go into the search bar at my channel and check it out. But what happens is that the Sanskrit symbol is placed inside the tube and into the palms of their hands. And the activation, the catalyst of this symbol within the tube begins to awaken what has become laden. I used to call it the caked and baked in tars, right? If you follow me, you know this idea of the tar body, which is a layer of toxins, both physical, emotional, mental, that we walk with. Perhaps some of it is karmic, and perhaps some of it is just pain, is the pain of the past and the memories. Some of it is all the drugs that you've ever taken, whether they're medications or an addiction to something else, no matter what it has been. But there's an accumulation of toxins that happens in this tube, much like the lungs, and much like the physical lungs. And if we are not doing practices to heal ourselves, to consciously breathe in, take life in, to consciously exhale, allow life to release so that divine circulation of life force can happen. If we are not consciously healing our lives, even if it's little by little, practicing forgiveness, practicing compassion towards ourselves always first, right, and with others, then what happens is that these debris, these toxic memories, these feelings, these emotions, the smoke, the tar from smoking, the residual from being on all those meds for all those years gets stuck in this tube, in the inner lining. And the more anger and unfinished business and feelings of remorse or whatever, it can be anything, self-hate, all that stuff, right? All that stuff gathers in the crystalline tube as these feelings and emotions can gather metaphysically as tar in the lungs, as liquid in the lungs. And again, if we're not having a conscious, consistent practice to keep the equilibrium of the body-mind continuum at peace, to honor and to keep the immune system boosted, right, both energetically and physically, then what happens is that the tipping point shifts in the way of that tar body, and the tars begin to cake in and bake in and become hardened inside of the tube. Now let's talk about this tube. So what's up with this tube, right? Here's you. Aren't you cute? I think you kind of look like a gingerbread man or woman. And so do I. But we imagine, right? Here's your tube. And it goes above the head and below the body. Now, the cool thing about this tube, much like the lungs, the physical body lungs, is that it breathes for us. It is the energetic component of our energy body matrix that breathes for us. It takes life force energy in and it releases life force energy out. And we don't even have to think about it. It does it. The same like the breath, right? The same like the lungs. We don't really have to think about it too much. The body just breathes for us, and we can practice pranayama. We can practice breathing techniques, right? To put us into, to shift our consciousness, to practice our meditations whenever. Oh, blessings, Will. Thank you for joining, for hopping on. Namaste. We can do all of these things to help to align us, right, in that way. And, or not. The crystalline tube, unbeknownst to us, right, unless this resonates with you, perhaps this is the first time this teaching has got to you, is that it breathes for us, right? The inhale and the exhale of life force energy through this tube above and below happens naturally. The tube breathes for you. It inhales, it breathes in life force energy, just as the physical lungs breathe oxygen in. It breathes life force energy into this crystalline tube that houses your spine and your chakras, that connects you to the eternal love and light, to all of the life force energy in the universe. Now, and once this energy tube, this crystalline tube, breathes this life force in, what happens is, just like the lungs, as we read earlier, is it distributes out. From this tube, there are branches of many channels. And it's very interesting. I did just a little research last night, and the nadis, which are the channels that extend like the branches of the bronchi, as we were reading with the lungs, they extend out and out and out into smaller and smaller and smaller, like how there's arteries, veins, and capillaries, right? We can imagine from this main highway, this crystalline tube that's breathing in and out this invisible life force energy, this prana. What it's doing is it's breathing it in, and then it's exhaling it out. But as it breathes it in and takes it in, unbeknownst to us, or perhaps we are aware of it, That life force energy is then distributed through the channels to all of the bodies, to all of your energy bodies, right? To your, we're going to keep it simple, right? To your etherical blueprint, but really to your mental and emotional bodies, to your physical body, and how they all interrelate. And so much like that, your physical lungs do that similar process. Now, again, though, depending on how much stuff we're carrying in the lungs, on how much unhealed energy, unhealed emotion, unhealed mental continuum stuff we're walking with and that we're holding in the lungs, that will dampen our ability to take in our fullest capacity of breath of life force energy and to be fully nourished, revitalized, and replenished from it. And will also dampen our ability to fully excrete and exhale it out. I'm getting very high right now as I talk to you. I need to drink water. Now, the reason we're talking about this Reiki idea is because, as I shared, within this crystalline tube, this is the main highway through which the body systems breathe, through which your energy body matrix breathes. Where there is a buildup of caked and baked in issues, stories, unforgiveness, pain, memories of the past that no longer serve your well-being, that no longer serve you being in your full power and authority and your freedom and sovereignty in the now moment. Well, what happens is that when an individual is guided to receive their level 1 Reiki, that Sanskrit symbol is placed in the tube and it begins to activate a gentle, I like to call it like a marinating of the toxins that are built up in that crystalline tube. Because as you can imagine, if you've ever been around people that have been heavy smokers for many, 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 many years, you might watch them and see the quality of their breath. And we're not judging anyone, but we might watch and observe the quality of their breath. How deep do they breathe? Does it feel that they're struggling to breathe in and out? Is there a raspiness? Is there something going on in there? Are they breathing deep at all? Is it a very shallow breath that they're breathing? So like that though, we're just thinking about this idea because if there's many, many years of congestion, of tars, whether it's energy tars that we're holding in the lungs, that being unresolved emotional, mental feelings and issues from the past, and or those issues and I will say those issues are reflected in the crystalline tube. So to the degree that your tube is cleared is the degree to your lungs being cleared. To the degree that your lungs are cleared of emotional stuff that we might be carrying them is the degree that your crystalline tube will be cleared. So when a student first comes and they get their level 1, it's all about them learning to lay hands on themselves. So they will have the symbol in their hands and in that tube. And again, that symbol begins to gently soften and marinate and loosen the tars, all that debris of that caked and baked in pain and that memory of limitation and all those stories. It starts to soften only that which is ready to be softened, only that which is ready to be released for the highest good, for their highest good. And then the student's practice is to lay hands on themselves. And it is through the laying hands on themselves that offers a divine metaphysical means by which that tar is energetically lifted from the tube, lifted from the channels, lifted from the tissues and all the places and spaces through the energy bodies and the energy organs. So as you can imagine, if we don't have a means to consciously heal the lungs, to consciously practice taking life force in and out of the body, to heal our lives, if we're not consistently working on ourselves, and if you're watching this show, you are a conscious co-creator of your life. You have chosen to be awake. You have chosen love to whatever degree, even despite your tar body. You are choosing to see things differently. You're choosing to allow a new vocabulary to articulate itself through you so that you can explore different notions of who you might be and how you might exist in this world, and perhaps new practices or ways of thinking about things so that you can begin to digest and process energy differently. So again, preparation. If we are gunked up, right? If our tube is gunked up with a lot of tars, then No matter, you can go to the Himalayas, you can go to wherever where the air quality is really beautiful and fine. But if your physical lungs are full of gunk, and if your tube is full of gunk, there's going to be only a certain amount of this divine life force energy that you can take in. There's only a certain amount of love that we can take in. And I know it sounds like an absolute, and I'm not really one for absolutes here on this show. Yet, just to explain this metaphorically, you can imagine if your crystalline tube, which is the tube that houses your spine and your chakras, which in turn is connected to all of the nadis, all of the branches that branch out through you energetically, all of the meridians that connect and bring that vital life force energy to every part of your body. If you, right, are not doing a consistent practice of forgiving, of choosing love, of whatever way it is for you, of your Reiki, of your healing, of going to acupuncture, of doing a yoga class, of doing your home practice yoga, of being in nature, of conscious breathing, whatever it might be for you, writing your energy letters, right? Whatever it is for you, to consistently love yourself, to consistently heal those wounds of the past. You see, it's time now. It's time now for that to happen. If you're watching this show, it's time now to release the old grievances. We're not, wherever it is you think you want to go spiritually, or that you know is for you spiritually, that's how you get there. It's not by trying to ignore that stuff. It's by honoring it and alchemating it, eating it, using it, feeling it, going through to the other side of it. Processing it, speaking about it, crying about it, journaling about it, whatever it is that you are guided to do, so that you can go through it, so that you can complete the cycle and be done with it, so those tars can be softened and released from you. Because as long as there's tars gunking up this crystalline tube, right, there's going to be a limited way, a limited amount of that life force energy that can channel through all of your other nadis, all of the channels that are ready to serve and nourish all those parts of your being. So think about it right now. What physical ailments, if any, because perhaps there are none and you can put them in a bubble of light, but what physical ailments are up for you right now? Just take a moment. What's up for you? And what does that mean? Who's in massage? For years I did massage, and when we would be doing a massage and someone would have a nugget, where they'd be like, ooh, that's the spot. Ooh, it feels tender. We'd say, well, whose name is on it? Whose face is on that nugget? So when you think about a certain ailment, and there may be layers, maybe it's not right away that you get to it, and maybe after the show you'll be like, oh, and something deeper will come. But we think about, like, who's in there? Where are we withholding love? Where are we withholding the exhale? Where are we withholding our ability to even inhale? And so allow that exhale to have its natural power, to continue that circulation of life force, of love force through us. So just being mindful, right, of understanding that there is this metaphysical component of where there's like this Louise Hay book that God on the God phone had us read a little bit of earlier, where there's a physical ailment. It's speaking to a probable cause that is rooted in a belief somehow that we've taken on to be true. Yet as we reroute and rewire that belief, as we reword and refeel into that and recalibrate and create a new condition for a new condition of your mind, of your body, of your emotions. So it is done. So the way is made. But we do this in baby steps. We do this to prepare. So telling you this Reiki story, I want to finish with that, and then we'll keep going, is that there's these levels. As I told you, there's level 1, 2, 3, and master. And they're there for a reason. Because with each level of attunement, as that tube clears, and this goes for, even if you're not doing Reiki, if you're not a Reiki practitioner, I do believe the same applies as you have your own path of healing that you follow. The tube is the tube, is the tube. We all have this tube. And above it and beyond it, below it, is God, is love, is the truth, is eternal peace. This is our hard wire. This is our main connect. Voom, voom. above, so below, my friends, to divine source, to that which is unchangeable, to that which is love and only love. So how clear is your connector? How crossed are your wires? How gunked up are your wires? Because, you know, if this is gunked up, if the crystalline tube is gunked up, then the ways that it then what happens, I'll just say it, is that this gunk, this tube will only hold so much gunk, and that gunk will start to spread out into those smaller channels and the smaller channels and the smaller channels, and then the whole body becomes energetically constipated, and your tube's ability to take life force in and to let it go out becomes stifled. And so there's a stagnancy of life force energy. So we go to the acupuncturist, we go for a Reiki healing, we go, you know, and we receive these modalities. And so there's a little reset button that creates the correct conditions for the body to help heal and reorganize itself in alignment with your true holy hologram of self, which energetically and metaphysically often is spoken of as the etheric blueprint. Now, I know I said it earlier, and I may have said it incorrectly, I'm not sure, but we think about this etheric blueprint as spirit, as God. This is the master blueprint of you in your perfect health and your perfect happiness and your perfect joy. It's what you came in with. Now, whether you're living that fully turned on with every little bit and bob, right, of all those dots connected or not is another question, and there's no judgment. Maybe we're half lit, like the Christmas tree lights, and we're starting to plug in more and more as we heal our life and we love ourselves. We get turned on, right? And there's no turning back. Let me just finish on this Reiki story, though. So the idea is you get this into the tube, these symbols over time, level 1, level 2, and you get level 1 so that you learn how to hold space for yourself. You learn how to hold space within your tube, in your body continuum, in your energy body matrix continuum. You begin to learn how to hold love, how to hold this powerful eternal frequency of love in your system. And by laying hands on, this becomes amplified. Your ability to do that becomes greater and greater. And the more that you lay hands on yourself, the more you're creating the correct conditions for those tars, for those parts of self that are not in resonance with that holy body hologram, that etherical blueprint of your truth and your perfect health and happiness. All that stuff appropriately begins to release. It begins to lift off what you are not, what no longer serves you. And your divine communion with self on this planet and this body begins to leave. And so it's with greater ease that you can feel love. Now remember my little story about that Kriya Yoga experience in New York. I went and I sat at that free night, that first Friday night, and I got zapped with so much love that it disturbed my caked and baked in tars. That frequency of love was so powerful. I was not ready yet. Whatever, all the work and the yoga and the Reiki I had already done was not enough for that amount of voltage, for that level of life force current for me to hold. So I got that little taste. It zapped me. It put me in a bad mood. I got into a fight and it spat me out and I forgot about it. And it just wasn't time. But that next year I went back. I was guided and it was time. And I was ready. I was ready. I was humble. I had done some more healing work on myself to the level where I could sit in the presence of that and not be disturbed. And so we get our level 1, we learn how to heal our lives, we learn how to heal ourselves. And as we heal, as that stuff, and as I was saying earlier, I believe there are parallels with all of our healing practices, that as that tar is released, is softened, is released, as it's like being constipated energetically, right? In this lung, in this energy lung, your capacity to take life in, life force in and out, to breathe it in, to breathe it out energetically, becomes freed. And so there's less and less tar gunking up this crystalline tube. There's less and less tar in all of those little channels that branch out and that deliver the sustaining life force, love force energy to all of your bodies. And then what happens is you get your level 2 if you're guided. And with each attunement that you receive in Reiki, as those tars, right, whether it's through Reiki or through karma yoga, through service, through whatever it is, as those tars begin to release and you begin to heal your life really consciously and you really let that stuff go, those tars release, well then that crystalline tube is allowed then to grow, and your ability to hold even greater flows of love, of life force, of love force become expanded. And all of those little channels in your body become expanded, right? Yet there's a preparation. You do level 1 before you do level 2. Like in karate, right? There's certain color belts. You learn how to paint the wall. You learn how to wash the dish, before you're going to do a flip and a spin on someone. Like you build. And it's said that in our Reiki practices, that if you are guided to be a practitioner with the very ill in the hospitals or the hospices, and you're guided to do that work, to hold space with those that are very ill in those ways, it is always recommended that you do your level 1 and you learn your level 2, that you become attuned to level 2, so that, yes, you learn how to experience that healing within your own life first and foremost, so that you know through your own authentic integral practice of healing yourself how to hold space without even trying, just to hold space in that frequency of love with others, to allow them to be what they're being, and for you to just come in and to add love to whatever it is. Now, equally so, when someone is very, very ill and sick, and especially you're guided to go into a hospital where there's a whole hundreds of people that may be very ill and sick, and if your tube is only so big and you're not really working on yourself, you're not practicing healing, even though you might be attuned to level 1, well, what's going to happen is you're going to take your little tube into the hospital. You're going to start working on people. There's going to be a lot of people around you, and they're going to be pulling so much energy from source, from love, from divine, all that is, through your crystalline tube and out through the channels and through your body-mind matrix. And if you're not wired, if you haven't done the proper preparation to hold space for all of that that's going to be pulled through, then you're going to I want to say hardwire. No, you're going to explode. No, you're gonna short circuit, because you have not cultivated, you have not prepared your ability, the tube. You have not created the correct conditions for your channels to hold that high frequency, to channel that much life force through your body-mind continuum, through your crystalline tube and out through your channels. And so what's going to happen is that those really sick people are going to pull, they're going to need a lot more from you than you just walking down the street and being like, oh, I'm going to Reiki my goldfish. It's a very different thing. Or I'm going to Reiki my boyfriend for 5 minutes. It's a very different thing. It's going to be pulling so much through you. And if you're not practicing regularly, if you're not clearing your TARs and you're not attuned appropriately to the right level, then what's going to happen is you're going to create the correct conditions to short circuit. And you're also practicing, unless you really do not know and you don't know any better, like sincerely. But if you do know better and you're doing it anyway, there's that chance that you, unless you're really divinely guided by God, and it really doesn't matter anyway, whether you're attuned or not, right? Some of this stuff you could throw out the window. But I'm just painting a picture for you here to understand this capacity that we all have to channel love, this capacity that we all have for this tube to grow and to expand. But there's a humility, there's a level of preparedness that we create the correct conditions by practicing love, so that we can experience and hold more space for love. And we never force it, we don't push it. With humble reverence, we practice our modalities that we choose. Now, there was a student once that wanted me to attune her. She wanted to skip level 1, 2, and 3 and go straight to master level with Reiki. And I was perplexed about this. And at this point, I think I was only a practicing Reiki master for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years at that point. And I was like, what? And the interesting thing is that I really was stuck for money at that point of my life. I really was constantly scraping by. And she had a lot of money, and she's like, look, I'll give you full price, whatever it was, to attune me straight to master. And just let's forget about those other things and just give me the master level and the certificate. So she had she just wanted the master. She wanted to be the Reiki master. She wanted to have the certificate without going through the trenches, without doing the work. You see, there's work. It's an inside job. These attunements, it's not about just this, it's not about just being certified. There's qualifications that you receive that are inherently invisible in your alignment with self-love, in your path of generating the ability to love yourself, and not just when you're at yoga, and not just when you're doing Reiki on yourself, but as a conscious part of your continuum that you walk with in every day and in every way. And so this was interesting. And even though I needed money and she was flashing me the cash and all this stuff, I just knew. I was like, I would be so not the kind of teacher and master I intend to be if I fell for this. Like, I could see it. And I was like, I couldn't do it. And she pressed me. And she pressed me for several months on this. It was very interesting. But the more that she pressed me, the more I realized, like, girlfriend needs her level 1. She needs to level up. And I kept coming back to her and saying, all students start with level 1. There's a 30-day process. You know, I went through the motions with her. So I just think that's an interesting story. I pray that it serves in just your putting all these pieces together of how all this stuff works, because there is a divine preparation, and doing our homework and creating the correct conditions to be a master of our time and space, to master this all. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this tube in a different way. Okay. And then we're going to do a little meditation at the end. But, you know, in speaking about the power of this crystalline tube, your tube, the more that you love yourself, the more that you practice love with others, your tube is expanded. Your ability to be in the world and not of it becomes expanded. Your ability to become invisible becomes expanded. Now, why would you even want to be invisible? Honestly, there is no want. It is simply a side effect that happens as you drop atoms, as you relieve yourself from the notions of who you think you are, of who you've been told you are in this world. Pardon me. You begin to become invisible because you're not plugged in to the gravity of the grids. You're not plugged in to the stories, right? You're not walking with all the tars clogging up this main thoroughway. Now, I'm really guided now to, okay, I'm really guided. So let's do it. Let me get my book. I was making notes here with The Apprentice the other night, of which I had so much fun with you. And we're going to think about this. And there's so many side notes here that I want to say. But we're going to think about this because ultimately, right, here's the tube. Here's your body. Now, and there's the Ida, the Pingala. There's so many other things we can talk about, but we're keeping it simple for today. And as we talked about, your crystalline tube is breathing in. It's your energy lung. It's breathing in, it's taking in and expelling out this life force energy. It's circulating this life force energy. And from this main tube, it's branching out and it's reaching out and connecting to, right? Well, first let's talk about those chakras, right? We have those chakras along the spine, crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, the sacral plexus, and the root. So as this life force comes in, it's nourishing, it's bringing into all of the chakras the potential to be nourished. And again, everything is interconnected. So to the degree that your tube can take life in is the amount of life force you're going to take in. To the degree that your chakras are prepared and ready to take life force in is to the degree they will take that life force in. And to the degree that your channels that branch out and off from those chakras to meet and merge and connect with all of the body systems, to nourish, to fortify, to bring all that life force energy out through the systems is to the degree it will be met. And there's no right or wrong. And there's sometimes we need a tune-up, right? But again, we do our modalities to help clear the way. Now we're going to think about this first circle here, right? The one closest to the body. And we're going to think about this. I'm going to turn here. We're going to think about this. Pardon me, my back is to you here for a minute. But we're going to think about this, that I'm sort of outlining or surrounding with green, that's the etherical body. And remember we were talking about the Holy Grail hologram. This body that's closest to your physical body holds your perfect blueprint of health. You know, in Kirlian photography, you can look it up. You can take a picture of a leaf and you can see its energy aura as perfect. And then you can go back. You can rip a little corner of the leaf off and take another Kirlian photograph, picture of the leaf. And the Kirlian photograph will not show where it has been ripped or torn. It will show the exact same perfect hologram of that leaf as if nothing's wrong with it. Equally, when my dear beloved who passed recently, as I was sharing at the very beginning of the class, when a part of his path with the cancer is that he went through having to get one of his legs amputated. Now, the whole way up until his death, he would say to me, he'd say, ooh, ooh, like he was getting these phantom pains in the leg that they had taken away, which is a trip, right? Now, that leg was still there energetically in the memory of this etherical body, in this perfect body blueprint, which is related to spirit. You know how I say here on this show that all we're doing here at 4DT is we're learning new ways and new modes to think about, to speak about, to sit with, you know, creating union of the mind, of the body, of the emotions, and creating this union in a divine alignment with the truth within, with spirit, which is your heart, which is the truth. Spirit, as I teach it, your spirit and your soul cannot be messed with, no matter what the stories of this world tell you. That's not true. If you should have it be not true. Your spirit and soul cannot be messed with. They simply are that perfect blueprint. It's a lie. It's incorrect information, if I may offer, that it can be anything otherwise. And the same as your etheric blueprint. Now, your mental body, your emotional body can have some stuff going on in that, which we're going to get into here shortly. But your etherical blueprint, your hologram, cannot be messed with. The picture of that leaf, no matter how many pieces they kept ripping off of that leaf until there was just the spine of the leaf, they kept taking Kirlian photographs of that leaf. And every time, no matter how many pieces of that leaf they took off, you still saw through Kirlian photography a picture of that leaf in its full perfection. Interesting. Like that, again, my beloved having his, my dear family member having his leg amputated as a part of his path, and then realizing, wow, I'm having some real sharp pains. And I used to do Reiki on the invisible leg. You know, we used to do Reiki, and then he'd say, like, I feel like there's something stuck in my toe, and I'd go down there energetically, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I see that. You know, there's sometimes there'd be stuff going on. We'd take that, oh, it's an ingrown toenail. It's like very interesting, right? That whole realm that you can work in as you're guided. But the point is that phantom pain, especially after the initial surgery, for the first several months after that initial surgery, was so severe for him that the doctors, they have a specific medicine, a med that they prescribe for phantom pain because it's that freaking real. The leg is gone, but the pain he feels in that leg, below where they amputated it, in the leg that is no longer there, he still had pain. Now, isn't that interesting? You can remove the leg. You can remove the leg. But if the source of the pain is not healed, pain will still reside. So this is deep. This is deep, my friends, because the pain is in the tars. You know, and we can access and supplicate the surface aspects of self, and we can paint over what's going on. You can have a lung infection and you can, you know, drink the yogi teas, the breathe easy. You can take lung concoctions, which I do that at least twice a year. I do a lung reset because I know I've been a smoker for many, many years, and I still smoke, although not a lot. I'm very aware of the importance of those as physical organs in the body, for me specifically. So I consciously do that. Yet, and that's great, and that will help the body to create the correct conditions, right? To metabolize, to calibrate, to work at its greatest optimum that it can. Yet, what are the issues that are held in there? What are the stories? What is the pain? What's the past and the memory? And where we're being called to is to rewrite the stories, to heal the pain, to heal the past, so that we come back to maybe not that full perfection, because we are humans. I mean, this is what we're doing here. We're dancing. We're dancing this dance of light and dark in so many different ways, of pain and of love in so many ways. Yet to know that a part of this story is that your perfect blueprint of mastery walks with you always. Your body's perfection, no matter what the diagnosis is, hepatitis C, HIV, cancer, whatever it is, Lyme's disease, whatever it is, there's a part of you that is walking with you always, that is that perfect divine blueprint that is spirit. So we imagine this etherical body that walks with you is spirit. And so this channel, we're breathing life force in and out through this tube, this crystalline tube that houses the spine, spinal channels, cerebral spinal fluid, which eventually we'll get into that, right? And distributes this vital life force energy through the meridians, the channels, the nadis, all the names we give it, to feed and nourish the replenishment of the physical body so that it matches back to the degree that it can the etherical body, the perfect blueprint of your body. Now, beyond this etherical blueprint, the next circle out here, this is the mind, the mental body. And so this is where we store all of those thoughts, harmonious or inharmonious. This is where we store all of those thoughts we have about ourselves, all the thoughts that we've ever had about ourselves, all the thoughts and the judgments, the projections we have about others, towards others. Beyond that is the emotional body. This is where we store, sometimes it's known as the astral body. It's different teachings, right? Or just for today, think about it in this way, if you will. Think about this emotional body, and much like the mental body continuum, this is the body, the layer of our aura that we walk with that holds all of our emotions, right? And you know, if you follow the teachings I share, that emotions are not real. Your emotions are not real. Your feelings are. Now, why? Because your emotions are bridged from your mind. Your emotions are calibrated from your mind. Your feelings are calibrated from your heart, from your truth, from the truth of you, from your heart center. Okay, so I know that's a lot. Maybe it's not. Maybe you're ready for more. So, this crystalline tube houses the spine, it houses the chakras, that nourishes, brings life force energy, prana, to all the channels through the bodies, that helps to serve in creating the correct conditions through the channeling of that life force, whereby the mind and the emotions, the mental and the emotional bodies can recalibrate themselves so they can sync up and match back into your perfect hologram of self, your etherical blueprint, your perfection of self. Well, this is what's going on, because as long as you have caked in, baked in tars and gunked up aspects within that crystalline tube, you are connected to those aspects in the collective through this. At the top, my very fancy art here is the collective grid matrix that, you know, if you follow me, that we talk about all the time here. And the collective grid matrix is made up of all thoughts, of all feelings, of all mind, of all emotions, of everything you can ever, every word, every feeling, every utterance, everything that doesn't even have a word. Everything is held in this collective network that we all share, this library of events, of information that we all share, that we all plug into and plug out of, that we are all connected through. The more gunk, and I know this word gunk, it keeps coming. Honestly, I'm bewildered as to what else I should call it for today, right? Tars, right? The tars. The more tars, thank you very much, higher self, that we have built up in this tube, we understand that it's going to limit The capacity of the tube to take life force in and out, to nourish, to fortify, and to bring about a certain calibration of the mind, mental, and emotional bodies to sync up with this divine etherical blueprint, and to the level that we hold and we walk those patterns that have been unresolved, those patterns that are left unhealed, those unforgivenesses. And I know it's not like about healing everything instantly, right? We're purifying, we're preparing. Again, we're one baby step at a time, humility, offering up. But sometimes you have a huge healing and you just drop a lot of stuff, because you've been creating the correct conditions for a certain amount of time up until that. And then you go to a healer, or you have that one massage, or you go to the mountain and you're like, and the earth just takes all your tars. And all of a sudden you're like, I feel reborn. I feel renewed. I feel so much lighter, whatever it might be. You float in a float tank, whatever it might be. It can happen like that. And it can also happen in those little tiny chunks and baby steps. To the degree that we are laden with the tars in the tube is the degree that we are plugged in to the grid matrix of collective consciousness. And that's great, or not so great, depending on the power and the polarity of the thoughts and the feelings that are not healed yet, that we walk with, that baggage that I was talking about earlier. So your tars in the tube will keep you bound to the world, to the duality, to the binary consciousness, to the polarities of love versus fear, to that play of power in the world. And what we're doing is, as we clear this energy lung, as we become conscious that it is an energy organ in the energy vehicle, in the energy body, and as we become conscious that it connects us to this matrix of the energy body that goes beyond this physical form, and also that connects us to the greater whole, where we become awakened and enlightened in this light of understanding this complex integration and interconnection that is always happening. And we're invited to get with this notion of, as we become conscious breathers, as we take life in and out consciously through the lungs. If you're just joining us, at the very beginning, I read a little bit from some information I got online that spoke to, because I was looking for how big are the lungs? How big are the physical lungs? Like, I wanted facts. I wanted like 7 inches long and 4 inches wide, or like I wanted facts, and I couldn't find it. It's probably there somewhere. If you find out, leave it in the comments. I'd be so grateful. But what I did find was like almost even more amazing, is that generally for most of us as a grown adult, the lungs, the tissues of the lungs can be unfolded up to just about the size of a tennis court, and that's inside of your body. So we were talking about all the folds and the nooks and the crannies of the ways and the places and the spaces that stuff can get lodged in there. Tars, feelings, polarities, judgments, unresolved pain, all that stuff that can get stuck in there. And we are understanding that the more that we heal that, the easier the inhale, the easier the exhale, the easier that divine communion with spirit is, when we can take life in and let it go. Like, really take it in, really take life in, and really let it go. Because it doesn't exist anyway. Okay, that's another corner to turn. The grids do not exist, right? We think here, we believe here, that what is really real is only that which is rooted in love. And as Santos Bonacci, right, reminds me, is that we use the grid, we use the matrix. We learn how to labyrinth our way through the matrix, through becoming a master of time and space, through our conscious thought, word, and deed, through really being mindful of what it is we are contributing. And as we loosen the tars and we drop those atoms, and we become less of the world, and in one way, almost more, more in it. We can relax in it more because we don't have so many judgments and polarities and pain and stuff that we walk with, that we're constantly projecting onto everyone and everything. Like, you can chill out. The abundance card in the Osho Zen, if you watch my tarot, you can relax right here. You can learn that the world can be a safe place. You don't have to be a victim anymore. And believe me, story of my life. Believe me. Read my book, The Reiki Apprentice. It's all about that. So the more that we allow that healing to happen the more that crystalline tube, that energy lung that is the basis of your ability to take life force in to your body systems, your body mind continuums, and exhale it out, right? With ease. Becomes calibrated. And as there's more light, as there's more love walking with you, as there's less of the other stuff walking with you, what happens is you begin to go beyond the grid. So this is what I wanted to share with you earlier. And it might be early for this, but I'm guided, so we're going to go there. And you know what, just one thing, a little side note, and I know this might seem funny, but I know there's at least one of you watching, and you know who you are, or you're listening at least, perhaps. And I'm assuming you know who you are. But I want to show you this picture. And it's so funny because I know for years, for all year last year, I was like, we're going to do a merkaba presentation, da 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 da. And you know, I had done one a couple years ago, and I went back into my presentation PowerPoint thing, and it's gone. So I was like, ooh, girl. Okay, so I get to redo that and then present it to you. Side note, before we do this sandwich picture that I'm going to show you, and then we're going to wrap up, we'll do a little meditation to clear the channel. Oh. Yes. Yes. So is to now I'm getting distracted. Okay. We're going to talk about the sandwich. So oh, that's what I was going to say. Yes, there may be one of you, and you know who you are, but there may be more than one of you. So this idea, I just want to show you the merkaba, right? Talking about the merkaba. So we're going to take these two triangles, the two star tetrahedrons, right? And you know how often it is drawn like this, where here's your little head, here's your body, right? And then like your legs are like sticking out, like there's hardly any room. There's hardly any room in there, right? And then your arms are like sticking out, right? I think it's so hilarious the way that we're shown the merkaba. And a lot of these, just you go online, right? And you see this over and over again, where we're like squeezed in. We're like squeezed, like there's no room to dance. There's no room to like do a spin or do like a somersault or a cartwheel in there. And what I'm proposing, what higher self is proposing through me, is to stop that. And this is a side note, I know, I'm totally side noting here before we draw our sandwich of universal energy. But is to rather, you know, think about, now we're just drawing the same tetrahedrons, but imagine this is you in here. And you have all that space. I mean, think about it. This is like your luxury condo. If that doesn't resonate, then it's your chateau or your, you know, your mansion or whatever. But I'm just inviting you to allow it to be different than what you've been told, to what you've been shown. Allow it to be huge. Allow your space to be magnificent and to be massive, and allow yourself to just relax into this awareness that you don't have to be crammed into your merkaba. There's nothing other than the old way than perhaps it's been perceived. But there's what we're sharing today is the new way, is to, space doesn't really exist anyway. So you might as well allow yourself to have as much of it as, as much of it as you'd like. And thank you, someone's just hopping on. Angel Moon, what a name. Hello, Angel Moon. Blessings and welcome. So that was a little side note there about the merkaba, which again, I promise, now I got to redo that whole presentation and we'll get back to it. But anyway, I was sitting with the apprentice the other night. Beautiful imagery, which I pray I'm going to be able to draw for you correctly. I'm going to turn my back to you again, but just for a moment, because we're going to draw this and we're going to think about this, because then it has to do with the tube, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay, so can you see that? Move it like that. You can see it like that. Okay. So, interconnection is a constant in the 3D grid matrix. Because all of our thoughts, all of our words, all of our memories, all of our agreements with everything we've ever agreed, everything we've even disagreed with through time and space, it's held here. And this is the way we connect in this 3D world. This is the way that we're taught. This is the way that we are conditioned to understand interconnection in this 3D matrix, yet it is not the only way. As we turn on, as the tube gets cleared of the tars, as we stop walking with all the baggages and the pains and all the stories of who we were and what happened to us and all the unforgivenesses, as we begin to clear that out, this tube and this channel, this energy lung, brings in greater flows of prana, of life force energy, which delivers it through the bodies. And remember, we drop atoms, we become lighter. We begin to learn a new way of interconnection that is in the grid, but not of the grid. So, level 1, this is the 0 point right here. We're going to imagine this is the 0 point. And then there is the causal. There's this level where there's nothing as the 0, right? There's nothing. And then we start to think about something. We start to conjure. We start to think about, creating something. And so we start to excite the atoms. We start to excite the ions and all the potentials of protons and all this stuff in the universe. We start to excite it with our thoughts, with like our, what? And then it starts to rise in that way. And then we're like, no, I don't want those shoes after all. And then those shoes disappear. And we're like, but I really like boots. And then the boots, and then the boots, they start to gather excitement. And then we're like, ooh. And then we go online and we're like, oh, I found the boots. And then what happens? And I know I'm being really funny here, is what happens is that from this potential of the causal, where everything is coming into and out of being, where there's no jello set yet in the way of your reality, becomes more and more solid. Those boots, that healing, that situation, that opportunity, whatever it is that you know is true in your heart, whether it's a pair of boots or an audition or whatever it is, becomes more coagulated, more coherent, more real in this 3D. It starts to gather energy. And as it gathers energy, it starts to manifest as sacred geometry, as the geometries that we know, the dodecahedrons, the octahedrons, the tetrahedrons, all this stuff starts to happen. It starts to become solidified. And then as it becomes solidified through us, those energies begin to connect up with the grid. They create the grid. They become, those thoughts, those threads become activated through our conscious awareness, through our focused intention, and they begin to create energy. They begin to connect with other energy. Now, if I want those boots, I'm going to have to go onto Amazon. I need to make sure it's my right size. Then we start to connect with all these other interconnections energies. But really, what's going on here beyond that grid is back to the 0 point. So there's this energy sandwich. Now, if we think about ourselves over here and how we're in and amongst this, and we think about this 0 point, we think about the tube. Let's see, how would we do this? We think about the tube, right? The tube. We think about you. Just say this is you. I know this is a very funny you. You kind of look funny. So do I. Here's our arms. Okay. So here's the tube. And what's happening is as that tube clears and we are freed from the minutia of all the stories, and whether it's boots or the boots that you never got as a child growing up, or whatever all the stories of pain and all that stuff is, as we begin to clear all those considerations and stop creating all those geometries that create those pains and that perpetuate them from the past into the present and into the future, is that that tube clears, that energy lung clears, and our capacity to breathe, to connect with God, source, love, whatever name you would give it, as above, so below, becomes activated. Now, does that make any sense at all? This is us. Oh my God, we're so cute. Do you get it though? It's like, as we heal all that stuff, as we stop walking with all of the drama and the stories and the pain and all of that, what happens is that, you know, this whole 3D, this is the 3D right here. You know, and it's not a bad place to be. I quite like it. Let me take a moment. I need to open this window. So as we activate and calibrate this energy lung, by practicing self-love, healing our lives, doing all those things that help to generate and create the correct conditions for us to live in love, to relax in that vibration of love. Well, all of a sudden, this tube is given the right of way to go beyond, to plug in beyond this 3D into those finer frequencies of those which we are creating now together in this collective, on this channel and on other channels and all over, in all sorts of ways, with this higher mind, with this love and only love, with this 4D consciousness, this consciousness that resides from the heart and that we see and we experience through the heart and through the third eye vision, with our light sight lit. Remember, as we cultivate the ability to love, which is all we're doing as we heal the tube, as we're aware now that we have this tube, and that this tube is a major component, it's a major player in how we experience life and how we experience health in our physical bodies. And as we learn to be brave in the face of those aspects that are ready to be healed in our life, and we start stepping into them, and we heal that, then eventually, right, not that we're grasping or needing it, but eventually just a natural aspect is that the tipping point shifts. You drop atoms, you drop the gravitational grids that are binding you to all the stories of limitation, of it can't work out, miracles don't happen, whatever it is in this world. You go beyond the world, you bridge. This is your bridge, right? To your crystalline tube is your bridge that bridges heaven and earth. And what is heaven? I don't know, you define it for yourself, right? It's freedom, honey. It's sovereignty. It's bliss. It's you not being bound, to people, places, things, to circumstances. It's you being able to not have any polarized reaction about anything in any other way. And believe me, I know you're like, well, are you even human? Can you even have fun? Yes, you can. In fact, I don't know, for me, I'm having more fun the less gravity, the less tar I have in my system and in my tube. So you go beyond the grid, you go beyond this 3D as that tube, as your energy lung becomes cleared, becomes cleansed, and you begin to connect as above, so below, beyond the grid, and with that value of love that is love and only love, that is beyond the plunk position above and below. But your ability to be in the world and not of it is sustained through your ability to channel and be and embody love and only love consistently over time, over time, over time. I pray and I affirm that that fun little ditty there has some potency for you, has some seeds of information. So in ending here today, we're going to do a little meditation. And thank you for joining. If you are just joining now, as always, you're welcome to go back to the beginning and watch the show from the beginning. So very grateful for this community. I'm so very grateful for this opportunity to sit with you here today and to share what turns me on, what excites me. I'm so grateful to share that with you. And remember, your merkaba can be a spacious, spacious spaceship. It does not have to be a tiny, tiny, tiny vehicle. Now, with that, we're going to come into a short meditation here to end. And there is a point in closing. I know I did a lot of reading at a certain point today with the Kriya Yoga and about pranayama, and it was sparse and spitzy. There were bits and pieces that were just here for us today for us to just sit with and marinate in. And another final thing I want to leave you with as we enter this meditative state together is to consider this notion that the yogis believe that the less breaths you take, the longer you live, the healthier you are. Now, these are not just any breaths. These are conscious breaths, of course. Yet, this notion of if you breathe a lot of breaths, especially into only those upper respiratory areas, the full capacity to take breath in, to take life in, to take love in, for your tube Imagine your ability to breathe through your physical lungs is equal to the ability of your tube to breathe in and out. Now there's one, huh? Now there's one that will really bring a different quality to your inhale and your exhale, perhaps, if it resonates, if it clicks. So thinking about this, it's the quality of the breath, but also to slow the breath down, that there are less breaths per minute, to lengthen the inhale, to lengthen the exhale. And that's what we're going to sit with here this afternoon in closing. So if you would, take a moment to close your eyes and get comfortable so you can take a deep breath in and out. If you're wearing a tight necktie or scarf or belt, you might want to loosen it a little bit. We're going to place one palm over the center of the chest and one palm at the lower tummy, below the navel. Start to feel into the heartbeat of this body that you wear, that your spirit wears. And bringing awareness to your inhale and your exhale. Allowing your inhale to be deep, your exhale to be deep. And maybe you breathe in and out through the nose for both. I am going to invite you to breathe at least in through your nose. So we're not going to breathe in through the mouth. We're going to breathe in through the nose. Your body has a great capacity to take in greater volumes of oxygen, of life force, of prana through that oxygen when you breathe through the nose. So it's fine to breathe out through the mouth if that feels natural, but if it may feel unnatural, breathing in through the nose, just beginning to acquire that ability, the sensation of how it feels. And with that sensation, the ability to feel into the lungs, these two beautiful, majestic, healthy lungs inside of your body. As you visualize your lungs at either side, the chest cavity, imagine your crystalline tube, beautiful clear tube that houses your spine, the seed points of your chakras. And imagine that tube extending up beyond the top of your head and down below the base of your spine as far as it wants to go. And take another breath in and out. Maybe beginning to breathe so deep that you are feeling your torso. You're feeling your chest expand and contract. And now here, we're going to start to really consciously slow down the breath. As you breathe in through the nose, slow down the breath as much as you can. Imagine you are a breath millionaire. There's no rush. You are abundant in your ability to take this breath in. And when you're ready to exhale, you are abundant in your ability to exhale, to let go, to be very generous with your exhalation. We're going to allow the body to continue breathing slowly in and out, and we're going to bring the imagination into play even further with regard to your crystalline tube, the energy lung of your energy body matrix, and you are going to begin to imagine, without forcing, just imagine, you can visualize, you can see, you can watch, you can observe this crystalline tube breathing in and out. Simultaneously above and below, taking life force in, and simultaneously above and below, just releasing it out. And just as you breathe in through the lungs, breathing oxygen into the lungs, there's a nourishment, a bringing of oxygenation that nourishes the cells, the blood, that travels through all the channels, through the body, the physical body, through all the organs, all the systems of the body, and equally so, as you imagine this crystalline tube breathing in this life force, this prana, this love, force is breathed in through the tube and brought out through all of the channels that connect to that tube and to the energetic component of your physical body systems through the chakras, the meridians, the nadis, the channels, the conduits. So they are two in one in many ways. One serves the physical paradigm of our being, and one serves the invisible, the energetic paradigm of our being. And dropping back into this awareness of the physical lungs. I'm going to invite you to do this exercise 3 times. And what it is cresting the breath. And I teach it in my yoga classes. And it's where you begin to slow that inhale down to such a degree to really take your time, right? You're abundant with this inhale. You breathe in so deeply that you feel all the little folds of the lungs expand. You feel the lungs as if they are balloons, expanding and filling up. And then you hold the breath at the top for 1 second and you sip in even more air than you think you can. And then you hold it for 2 counts that you imagine in your mind. And then when you're ready, through the mouth, a complete exhale. So allow your exhale to be absolutely complete. Again, like you are squeezing out a sponge. Get it all out, and then do it again. Breathe in deep through the nose, filling up every fold of each lung. Breathe in, until you can't breathe in anymore. Hold it, sip in more air, and then hold it for just 2 counts of your own. And then that full, complete exhale. Everything out. You're going to do this 3 times. Breathing in, filling up, holding, sipping in more, holding for 2 counts. And that full exhale. Really squeezing everything out. Feeling the body, feeling the lungs, feeling the bellies, feeling your whole body expand and contract as you do this. Beautiful. And as we do this, when you're done, just sitting now for a moment and feeling this expansion of spaciousness within just by consciously inhaling to your maximal, taking life into your maximal ability, and exhaling, letting life go, letting everything, everyone, everything that you feel any attachment or neediness or anything to, the past, the pain, people, places, things in the present, in the future, just letting it all go with that exhale helps you to reset to the 0 point of self, to love and only love, to the space of non-polarity, of non-duality, where all potentials in the causal realm, all highest love and light potentials are given the right of way. And sitting with that feeling here, dropping back into that awareness of the crystalline tube and observing that crystalline tube, breathing in above and below and breathing out above and below. And imagining just that nourishing energy that is life force, that is love force, that is prana, coming in through that tube from above and below and through the channels that connect that tube, that main highway of life force out to all the channels, through the chakras, through the energy centers, the thousands of chakras that reside through your body, your body's nurturing and cleansing and clearing with each crystalline tube breath that connects your mind and your emotions to your etheric blueprint, that connects your mind and your emotions to the grid matrix of collective consciousness. Feel as you easier take life in and take life out, receive life in and let it go back out. The more you may imagine into this idea That the clearer this tube becomes, just by way of choosing love, choosing life, that a healing is allowed to happen, that a divine connection already is, and that you are connected beyond this body, beyond the physical form, beyond your mind, beyond your thoughts, beyond your emotions and the sway of those emotions, beyond the collective agreements, and only into that which is piercingly true and truth for you, in the light of love, in the world and not of it, as above, so below, free, sovereign, and so it is. Taking another breath in and out. 2 more, just to bring our awareness back to the body, back to the room where we are, back to this space we share together. And when you're ready, you can start to slowly open the eyes, bring awareness back here. I don't know about you, but I am certainly high. I'm naturally high. And that's what conscious breathing does. That's what conscious clearing of that crystalline tube does. Right? It connects us. The plane of love and only love. With the truth. With our master blueprint of self, with the higher self blueprint that we are. With all of love that is eternal. That is unshakable, unbendable. It simply is. And to rest in the harmonic frequencies of that love, if it resonates with you, is really just such a powerful gift. So I am so honored to share that with you today. Thank you for all of your time and attention. If you appreciate what I share here, I appreciate your thumbs up. I appreciate you subscribing. You can hit the bell and the YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. I bless this community and all the subscribers. I'm so grateful for all of your love and your attention and your support. Next week, we will be discussing, in light of this new year coming up in time and space, your true spiritual calling. I'm going to be diving into honoring that, questing into what that is for you, what that is for us as a collective. And then on December 27th, we will revisit the Ask Me Anything 4DT, where we bridge the 3D with the 4D. And you are invited to ask me anything at all, and I will answer. I will channel the higher self, your higher self, for the highest good, in light of bringing answers that will help to serve your path. They're very honest answers. We did a show, our first one of those, a couple weeks ago. I had a lot of fun. It was great. And I'm looking forward to doing it again. And literally, you can ask me anything, yet know that the answer will be coming from a spiritually inclined, metaphysical, multidimensional level. I have an email down below. You can send me your questions there. If you're on Instagram, you can also direct message me your questions there. Follow me. My link is down below. I graciously receive your divine support through this channel. There's a PayPal link. And also, please do subscribe to my website, tuesdaymaythomas.com. You will receive my monthly love letter. I just sent out December's. So if you subscribe, it's not too late. I will happily send you out this month's love letter. Again, I'm so grateful for this divine community. There's going to be so much more to offer and share with you. I am doing that special for the tarot, $30 for 30-minute reading. I use PayPal and Google Hangouts. Again, just send me an email if you want to talk about it, to set it up. I'm so grateful. I wish you a very blessed day. I feel really blessed. I feel very high right now, in a good way, in a very clear way. So the force is with you always, and that force works with no force. It is love. It is light. It is spirit, and we are that. Namaste with so much love, everyone. Blessings. Blessings and thank you. Thank you. Thank you.